veterans. And, there's so many things we could go over and talk about in improving the connection between veterans and their care and integrating back into society and how all that works. But one of the main components I feel like needs to happen is understanding. I feel like the military, our veterans, need to be understood a little more. And that helps the civilians, and that also helps our military as they enter back into society and the world of being a civilian by knowing that they're understood. So I feel like that's the biggest thing that happens. And to be invited to an event like this, when I got the call and they asked me to come and speak and they told me what it was, this is perfect. This is absolutely incredible to have a ball, a military ball, for civilians to come and experience and understand our traditions and everything that we go through. When I was injured, I struggled. And one thing I struggled with was not just my injury, but losing connection to the military. Feeling disconnected, losing that. And then I found over time that connection is there. Being invited to something like this is one of those moments that reminds me that I am still a soldier representing the military, even out. And it's funny that I can even say that because I actually never wanted to go in the military. My mother, who's here, was an Air Force brat. And she was always telling me, for those of you who don't know, an Air Force brat, her father was in the Air Force for 22 years, and she traveled all over to different places. So that makes her an Air Force brat. Well, then she had me as a son, and I was just really a brat. So she really encouraged me to go in the military, and I loved the military. I took pride in it, but I didn't see myself fitting into that world. So I never even considered it. Well, I was going to school at UAB in 2001. And of course, in 2001, we all remember 9/11. I'll never forget. That morning I didn't have a class, so I slept in. I got a phone call from a buddy of mine, Justin. When I answered, he said, "Turn on the TV." I turned it on. Every local station, all the stations were covering that one trade tower as it was burning. The news anchors were talking about pilot error. We were all concerned about those in the building. And then I watched with the rest of the world as that second plane hit. I'll never forget the screams around the cameraman. I watched for as long as I could, and I went for a run. I don't know how far I ran. I had no destination. I was just running. And on this run, I made a decision. I was going to join the military. I knew that we were going to be a country going to war, and I needed to be part of it. It was not a career decision. It was something that I realized I was 20 years old, I was physically fit, and I loved my country, so it was necessary. So I dropped out of school, and I enlisted in the Army. Went through basic training, went through jump school, and I got orders to go to Fort Campbell, Kentucky to serve with the 101st Screaming Eagles. Got there, started training. We had incredible leadership. Our division commander at that time was General Patriots. Amazing man. The more we trained, the more we prepped, the more pride I took in wearing that uniform. And then in 2003, we were part of the invasion in Iraq. General Petraeus designed the invasion. The way that we, the 101st, moved in, the Marines on the other side, and we both crisscrossed and hit Baghdad at the same time. Moving faster, they'd keep food and water to us. Once we hit Baghdad, we pushed north and took over the city of Mosul. And it was on this deployment I realized this had become a career. I had found happiness. Didn't want anything else. So there in Iraq, the day after Christmas, I re-enlisted, raised my right hand. I wanted to stay in the military. I wanted to stay with the 101st. And after a year deployment, returned back to Fort Campbell, started training, prepping, and in 2005, returned back to Iraq. Our second deployment, the 101st, was split up all over Iraq. My battalion, we were put in Yusufia, Mahmudiyah, southwest Baghdad, an area known as the Triangle of Death. An area that every unit that had been there had taken a beating, and we were no different. Within the first week, we lost our first 5 guys, and it never seemed to end. We did our best to stay together and keep the morale up. We had a guy, Sergeant Nelson. Sergeant Nelson was in the National Guard, and then decided he wanted to be part of that because of what happened on 9/11. He went and re-enlisted to go active duty. I explained that to you to say that, National Guardsmen, because it's 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the year, it takes longer to get promoted. So Travis Nelson comes to our company as an E5, a sergeant, and he was old to us. He was not the age of your average E5. And he was a grumpy old man, just bitter. We just called him Old Man River. And he just yelled at us all the time. That's all he did, just mad. And before we went on this deployment in 2005, I was at a meeting, and they had the FRG, the Family Readiness Group. So you had, the soldiers with their wives, their kids, everything, for a meeting to brief, to prep. And I see Sergeant Nelson in there. And it's the first time I've seen Sergeant Nelson with his wife and his daughter. And he was a big old teddy bear. We walked out that building, and I'm behind him, and I said, "I saw that, Sergeant Nelson. You're not that tough, are you?" And he yelled at me, "Galloway, get down." I'm pushing. I'm doing push-ups. He's yelling at me, but I was fine with it because I saw the real Travis Nelson. Incredible man. I bring him up because to be here tonight, there's so much that's going on that you're experiencing. And then we have this right here. Leaders of Veterans of Alabama on this wall right here. Travis Nelson was in the Alabama National Guard before he came to the 101st. His wife lives in Anniston. His face is on that board. He is a man that we lost right before I was injured. And it was one of those moments that when we lost him, it was almost the straw that broke the camel's back, I know for me. It was almost getting to be unbearable. It was a tough deployment. December 19th of 2005, we had a mission that our platoon, the platoon is made up of about 30 men. And our platoon had to run 2 missions. So half the platoon went in one direction, the other half of us went in another. The group I was with, we finished, we were done, and we headed back to an old potato factory we were living out of. When we got there, I laid down to get some sleep. See, when you live in a combat zone, you get a chance to rest, you take it, because you never know when the enemy is going to attack. But just as I dozed off, my platoon Lieutenant Jerry Edson woke me up. He said, "Hey, Galloway, we got to go pick up the rest of the platoon. We need to take the Humvees. We need empty seats in the Humvees. Nothing important's going on. We're just going to get them and coming back. Just wanted you to know we're leaving." And I said, "No, sir. You go, I go." I said, "I'm going, I'm driving the lead vehicle." I told him, I said, "If you go and something bad happens to y'all and I'm not there, I'll never forgive myself. And more importantly, if you go and get into an awesome firefight with the enemy, and I missed that, that's what you're there for. That's the dream." So like I said, I told him I'm driving the lead vehicle. But we take off about 2 o'clock in the morning. And in 2005, we drove with our headlights off, night vision goggles on. With night vision goggles, you can see well, but you can't see everything. One thing I didn't see that night was a tripwire stretched across the road. A tripwire that when my front tires hit it, it detonated a roadside bomb large enough that when it hit my door, it threw this 9,000-pound armored Humvee flying through the air and landing in a canal running adjacent to the road. Thankfully, it landed wheels down, because I don't remember any of it. Knocked me completely unconscious. My buddy said the water was up to my chest and I had a huge hole in my jaw. And they didn't know until they started wrestling to get me out of the vehicle that my arm was gone. They got me up the embankment into another Humvee, rushed me back to the potato factory. Medics worked on me there. Helicopter picked me up, flew me to a hospital outside of Baghdad. Doctors worked on me there to Germany to Walter Reed Army Medical Center in D.C. And that's when I started to wake up. 6 days later, on Christmas Day, I woke up just as my parents were walking in the room. And I'll never forget when I saw my parents, something in the back of my mind said, smile, so they know you're okay. I don't know why I thought that, because I didn't know what condition I was in. My concern was with them. You know, I mentioned my mom being here and being an Air Force brat. She's a small, white-haired, very adorable woman. Very unassuming, too. She can be tough. She's a lot like her father. And she has the ability to just say things without hesitation. And as I laid in that hospital bed, she was the one who stood there and told me the condition I was in. She told me, she said, Noah, you've lost your left arm above the elbow, your left leg above the knee. Your right leg was severely injured, your right hand has injuries to it. Your jaw was shattered, so your mouth is wired shut. And then just to completely rip the bandage off in one blow, she wants to get everything out. I was married at the time, and she explained to me that my wife wouldn't be at the hospital, that it was too much for her, and the marriage was over. And the final thing she said was, and while you're away, as we were watching your dog, he fell ill, and we had to take him, and he had to be put down. You know, it didn't take me long to realize an arm and a leg to get prosthetics, a wife could replace, but a good dog. I've had people say to me, they're like, oh, that's just a story you tell in your speech. No, this is real, and that's what they put me through. That was a hard thing to hear, and I'm glad she did it when she did it. It took it all in. Now, as I laid in that hospital bed, my father's also here. I have to mention him. When he was 18, he lost his hand working in a plant. My entire life he's done construction with one hand. Taught me how to roof houses, do room additions, plumbing, did it all with one hand. So he became a big inspiration for me to overcome this injury, this disability, and make it something of my own. When he warned me that it was going to be tough, there's going to be struggles. And like any son, I didn't listen. I thought, I got this. Well, I moved back to Alabama. I rushed into a second marriage. Had 2 more children on top of the one I had with my first marriage. Because I rushed into it, it didn't work out. Suddenly I'm a father of 3, and I found myself suffering from severe depression. I was not a good person. I was not anybody that I would hang around with right now. The struggles I was going through, the self-inflictions I was doing, self-medicating, drinking all the time. I was miserable, unhappy. One day I walked out to the living room, and my 3 children were sitting on the couch. And I realized to my 2 boys, I'm showing them what a man is, and that's what they're going to grow up to be. To my little girl, I'm showing her how a man is supposed to act, and that's what she's going to look for one day. And that thought terrified me. And I realized I need to make a change and make it fast. So I started to improve. There were still struggles, ups and downs, but every time I screwed up and fell flat on my face was the thought of my children that got me up and going again. I started pushing myself. Got back into fitness, started running races, obstacle course races, marathons, got into mountain climbing, do all these different things. And because of that attention I started gaining from pushing myself, missing an arm and a leg, and doing it just wanting to be a better father. As I got into better shape, I had more energy, I was spending more time with my kids. But with that attention, that's how I ended up on the cover of Men's Health. They called me the ultimate guy. I was the first veteran and amputee to ever grace the cover of the world's largest men's magazine. It was a huge moment for me. But because of the attention that the magazine got, I got a phone call from Ellen DeGeneres' people. Want me to come on her show. People told me, you go on Ellen, you're set. I did the interview. It was great. People always ask, is Ellen, she is amazing. I always get that question, what's she like in person? She is incredible. That woman, when she gave me that first hug, you knew it was real. But we had the great interview. After it aired, the phone started ringing. Survivor called me. I said, wow, that'd be awesome. I like Survivor. But we had one phone call. They said it's X amount of weeks, no contact back home. If you get voted off, you stay with the crew, still no contact back home. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. I have 3 kids here in Alabama. They're more important than a television show. And that was it. Another show called me. Same thing. Turned it down. Now, this wasn't some business plan where I was holding out for something better. 2 shows that thousands of people try out for called for me, and I said no. So that was it. Who else is going to call? And then Dancing with the Stars calls me. And they said, you have any dance experience? I said, no. They said, well, if you ever go to a bar or club, what did you do? I stood at the bar running my mouth. That's what I did. And they said, if you'll do our show, we'll put you in a house in LA for the duration of the time you're here. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. I have 3 kids here in Alabama. They're more important than a television show. Without hesitation, Dina Cass, the executive producer, said, that's okay. We'll have your dancer come to Birmingham. You'll rehearse there and fly back and forth to the live show every week. And the only thing that could come out of my mouth was, crap. I guess I'll do it. I didn't have very high expectations of how I was going to do on the show. But when I was introduced, they showed a picture of me holding my dance partner, Sharna Burgess, up in the air. That was a dance I did to Toby Keith's American Soldier. And that dance right there sparked a conversation, and I started having veterans reaching out to me, telling me how proud they were of me. The courage I showed to step out of my box, my safety box, and do that. That dance, within 1 week, had 41 million views on YouTube and became the top viewed dance in the history of Dancing with the Stars. I ended up going all the way to the finale and came in 3rd. Now, I've met some diehard fans that are like, you should have won, you got robbed. I'll always tell them the same thing. Rumor Willis, Bruce Willis and Demi Moore's daughter, was very theatrical, amazing to watch. She put a lot of passion into every one of her dances. And I'll tell you, backstage, she put a lot of pressure on herself. In rehearsal, she pressured herself. She worked hard, she got first, and she earned it. Riker Lynch, who was on the show Glee, super entertaining, great dancer. He got 2nd. Let's forget the fact that I missed an arm and a leg. I can't even dance. I came in 3rd in a dancing show. I'm okay with it. It was a great experience doing Dancing with the Stars. I had a woman just a little while ago ask me, did you enjoy it? And I was like, no, it was miserable. I don't like to dance. And I felt like I hurt her feelings when I said that. But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did the show. When I got there, they told me that Dancing with the Stars is like a family. ABC is like a family. Owned by Disney, it's like a family. That is how they continue to treat me. It's like family. They have been amazing. Going on that show, and the amount of people that heard my story, the amount of people that reached out to me to tell me that I was inspiring them, that I was motivating them. That's some of those little things that keep me going. Because we all have our ups and downs. That pain never completely goes away. I did a show on Fox called Remarkable Rebirth. Wrote a book, Living with No Excuses. It's done really well. I travel a lot. I've gotten to meet some incredible people. I had Coach Cullman ask me to speak to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tom Watson had me go to the 2014 Ryder Cup to speak to the U.S. team. My life is completely different than it was just a few short years ago. And no matter how good it gets, I still have those moments, those struggles, those doubts. And what really helps me is when I meet with those veterans, when I have those moments. Last year I spoke at a military ball at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. My unit. And it was incredible. It was those moments. And when I first got up here, I'd mentioned what an honor it is to be invited here, because to have a presentation that is open to civilians, to experience a military ball, and have these incredible leaders and a committee that put this together, and be one of the people that is here to represent our military, this is one of those moments for me that I will hold on to. Because I'm not just sharing it with my brothers in arms. All of you are here as well. And because of that, I want to offer a thanks to all of you that are here. I know that this is twice the size that they had last year. And I'm hoping next year's will be even bigger, because it'll be all of you and then some. Because for me, you've made a difference. You will be one of those moments that I'll need when I'm struggling, when I'm doubting. But I remember I'm still a soldier. I still represent our military. And it's those moments that help get me up. So for that, thank you from the bottom of my heart.